Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the TRE podcast. I'm your host, Matt Salesio, here today. We're lined up with another exceptional guest, exceptional episode. We have Jodi Scott from Green Goo in the studio. Jodi, thanks for coming on.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to dive in today. We got a really great topic, a couple good topics actually, to go through this episode. But I want to open the floor for you to lay the land for our listeners and talk about what Green Goo is, the origin story, how it came about for you, because I think it's going to set the tone for this episode in a really nice way.
Thank you. Yes, it's been quite a journey. My mom, sister, and I started this company together. My sister's an herbalist and a midwife, and I was pre-med. So I got my master's in health psychology, was training resident physicians in the biopsychosocial model, to really help the physician better understand that we didn't just want to prescribe a medication. If we really wanted to improve efficacy and commitment to change, we really needed to look at the patient from a holistic perspective and think of other barriers or other things we may want to suggest, maybe diet changes or what have you, that would complement the medication and the treatment. And then from there really became passionate about psychoneuroimmunology, which I'm sure we'll talk more about in our visit today. But this really created sort of the perfect storm for my mom, sister, and I to really lean in on the first aid space. And here we were living these very holistic lives, looking at clean ingredients, clean food, clean personal care products. But an observation we made is like, if I opened up my first aid cabinet, it was full of chemicals and one-time use products and packaging that I wouldn't normally, I would be more discerning with if I was looking at it from a personal care or cleaning product standpoint. And so, we started looking at this space even further, and we realized that the natural consumer was willing to abandon their natural ethos because they thought that products like Neosporin, hydrocortisone, calamine were the only products that could get the job done. And then we looked into it even further, and the conventional consumer was like, I really don't care what ingredients are in these products. I just want something that performs better. I need better efficacy because I've got a chronic skin condition that I am looking to products in the OTC market that are really for acute skin conditions. So, use for 5 days, discontinue using after 5 to 7 days if symptoms persist, or you may have organ failure. Extreme, but understandably that these products were not intended for ongoing use. And so we thought, okay, can we make plant-based solutions that are superior in efficacy than any of the other products on the market? Perform better, first and foremost, and also bring some sustainability and really educate the consumer into this holistic healthcare approach, this holistic skincare approach, and not just deliver a product that, is intended for that, we'll call it eczema. And let's start informing the consumer of what else could we be doing with this product to help with eczema, but then also educate and inform, on a healthier lifestyle standpoint.
Yeah, that's incredible. And we'll touch more on the Green Goo in the later little bits of this episode because there is a powerful mission behind it. And like what you said, the natural, organic, chemical free, that can be so monumental for a lot of people who might not even know that the chemicals could be a problem, right? But where I want to really touch on is when you also said the holistic side of things, lifestyle, food, stress, sleep, all these other things that go in to how the body is responding to that external environment and those external things that you're putting into your body. And I know you said you specialize in psychoneuroimmunology. And for a lot of people listening right now, they're probably saying, that's a huge word. I have no idea what you guys are talking about. So, can you quickly give a nice overarching definition so everybody's on the same page?
Sure. And, simply stated, it is really the relationship that your mind and your body have on your immune system and your nervous system and how all of that comes together. And, call it 10 years ago, it was really more an anecdotal area of research, meaning People kind of understood that the mind and the body was connected. They kind of understood that, that your environment, perhaps, epigenetics could, or your behavior could shape your overall health. But really, in the last 10 years, there has become so much research now in this space to give really good data. And I will say, and we can touch on this too, is the psychedelic space has had an incredible impact on really more resources going into the relationship of our mind, body, spirit, immune system. Of course, for me, I like to look at it too, just in terms of your everyday engagement. We use a term in our house called shaman, and it's an acronym that we use, and it's something that my daughter can use and going, okay, well, how does psychoneuroimmunology, how can I relate to that on the day to day? And so for my 12-year-old, I'm like, okay, sleep. Sleep is the first letter in shaman. You need to add to the sleep bank. If you are monitoring your sleep in a real way, you will find that the lack of sleep or good sleep is going to have a profound impact on your mindset and your immune system, and your overall physical health. H is hydration. And hydration is just a basic component of acknowledging in psychoneuroimmunology that we're biological beings, that we're 98%, plus water. And hydration is so important. So what we ingest, whether it is, choosing not to drink something that could be harmful, whether it's full of sugar or alcohol, or choosing an alternative that could serve you well, like full of hydration, but also in body care products, in food. Food sources have hydration, fruits and vegetables and different berries, and even in, your body care products, there's aloe vera that can be hydrating. And we find that with that hydration, there becomes less oxidation, which then puts less stress on your overall system. Um, and so SH, and now we're at A, which is antioxidants. So looking at antioxidants in every lens. So from your food sources to your body care products to the activities that you do. Too much sun exposure creates oxidation. Too much stress creates oxidation. You want to think about your body as like, does it serve you? And if it doesn't serve you, don't do it. M is mindfulness, and this probably is one of the key components in shaman and psychoneuroimmunology, is the power of the mind in your overall health and wellness. And I think some of the things can be very intimidating on the mindfulness component, that you think you need to meditate for 2 hours a day to get the benefits of what mindful practices can have on your overall health. And the reality is 2 minutes a day makes a difference. So I've taught my daughter, just take 30 seconds, look at the sunrise, look at the sunset, look at the horizon, take a minute and just be really present. And that in itself can turn your immune system around. My daughter does a lot of sports, and she got a cold, and she was like, Mom, I can't take a turn. And I said, you know what? Today we're going to have a mindful day. You're going to go in your room and you're just going to be free of the technology, but I want you to feel your body healing itself. I want you to visualize it, and I want you to be very intentional. And she's like, really, Mom? I'm like, just practice it. What else are you going to do? You're sick. And she did that. And I kept checking in with her. And then by the end of the day, she was like, Mom, I've turned a corner. I feel better. And I'm like, okay, well, let's not overdo it tomorrow. Let's just take it slow. But that's that relationship that you can have with your body in terms of improving it. And then the other A is avoid. And this is just a simple thing, is it's not always easy to do all the things that people tell you to do for health and wellness. But if you just avoid some of the things that aren't good for you, that in itself can serve you well. And then N is nutrition. I love that you love looking at nutrition and learning more. And I think, you know, um, I always go with the good old rule of thumb: whole foods, clean foods, less ingredients. Those are going to serve you the best. And that's very much how we followed in Green Goo because of, the ingredients that we've selected and how we process them in that same lens of simple is better.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing the shaman. That's new news to me. But my favorite part about all of those amazing elements that you can bring into your life is that they're so simple and foundational. And that's one of the biggest things that I preach over here at Revive is everyone thinks health and wellness is complicated. They think that they need to jump through all these hoops to just attain a better body or heal whatever they're going through. Majority of the time, even after reading an enormity of books and studies and doing all these certifications, is the basics. If you're doing all the basics, imagine how much better you would feel if, again, like you said, sleeping better. Are you hydrating? Eating foods that are going to actually serve your body and get rid of all that oxidation, which is not that hard if you're eating, fruits and vegetables. So what you really said there can put someone on the trajectory to just starting their health journey, maybe making it a little easier, understanding it's so foundational. And what I want to touch on now is we said we know how the body can influence the mind and the mind can influence the body. A great example through your story with your daughter. But let's get back into the toxins and the chemicals that lace our food, our cleaning products, our honestly everyday products. What is that doing to our nervous system and our immune system without us even knowing? Because we're around them, we consume them every day, and little known, we don't even know, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when we were looking at packaging for Green Goo, this really opened my eyes to what we're being exposed to. And they're really part of the Industrial Revolution. I mean, a lot of these chemicals are new to us when you think about, our lifetimes on these planets. And, one of the most predominant is phthalates. Phthalates is leaching from plastics, and lots of others, but that's probably the most relevant for us. And phthalates are the number one produced chemical on the planet, and the US produces 1 billion pounds of phthalates a year. And we are being constantly exposed to this. And this is an endocrine disruptor. So it very, simply starts with your hormones are not able to do the job that they need to do and inhibits sort of the domino effect, whether that means you're increasing cortisol and then you're increasing inflammation, or, you're decreasing your serotonin, which then reduces your melatonin, and then you have difficulty sleeping. And so it really creates a domino effect in terms of that homeostasis that's happening. So, when you're looking at how you're going to consume and engage, think not just about the ingredients or the process, but think about the vehicle in which it's coming to you, because that container can be just as bad for you as, perhaps the ingredients that you thought you were trying to avoid. Parabens are another one, and parabens are also an endocrine disruptor. This was an ingredient that oftentimes just goes in products just to create like a formulation balance. And the reality is, we have an incredibly advanced technology system, transportation system. I mean, heck, you can get same day delivery now. We don't need the preservatives that were brought to us in the Industrial Revolution in mass production that we used to. So we can start looking at how to eliminate those. Formaldehyde, petroleum, even fragrances, fragrances can be very disruptive. And, we're finding, especially, for example, putting them under your armpit. I always like to look at the transdermal absorption rate on our body as I'm looking at different skincare and topical solutions. And your armpit absorbs like 70%. And think about it, your armpit looks very different than a lot of the skin on our body, right? And we've only acknowledged our armpit as this really annoying vehicle that smells. We want to change the smell. And yet, our lymphatic system is there and it is just sucking in all of the things that we put there. And, there's an argument to be made that our sebaceous glands there are little mini organs and have more, are serving us more than we even give credit to. And here we're putting in, like, I mean, aluminum is not the predominant chemical that is in deodorant that we should avoid. There's definitely a lot more. And so thinking about that in terms of what not to put in there. And like when we were formulating our deodorant, we're like, well, if it's absorbing 70% of what we put in there, perhaps we should look at this inversely and maybe we should just put a ton of the vitamins into our armpit, because if we're doing that already, then let's have that be a part of our homeostasis and serve our bodies in a healthy way. So we put things like vitamin C, vitamin B, ashwagandha, holy basil, ginkgo biloba, because why not? And then what we found is our armpit actually started behaving differently. It stopped emitting odor. And perhaps, it's our armpit trying to defend itself against these chemicals that are being readily absorbed into our body.
I like that you guys took it on the inverse effect there, because you're always thinking about what to get out or what to stop. But you said, well, there's actually an entrance point there. That's an opportunity. And I think you took advantage of that. So I think that's really cool. I didn't know you guys had deodorant. Is that new, or you always had that?
I think we brought it to market about 2 years ago, and looked at it as how can we boost our immune system? How can we improve clarity? And then also relax and have adaptogens in it. So there are those three
Mhm.
different categories depending on what it is that you're looking for.
I like that you said adaptogens. Can we touch on that super quick too? Because that's a new topic for me. I have a very rudimentary understanding of it, but I know you know what, I'm just gonna let you take that one because I want to hear what you're thinking about that. But yeah, just what are adaptogens? How does it benefit us as humans?
Well, and I think, I always like to think of things in terms of, how can you align with this terminology in the easiest way? And adaptogens very much are what they sound like. It is your body's ability to adapt. And how do, what are vitamins, and we'll just use it as an external standpoint, right? Like what vitamins can you bring into your body to prevent free radicals so that your body can stay in a state of homeostasis? And so, and there's a strong connection to the mind, body, and adaptogens. It would definitely be a strong psychoneuroimmunology relationship if we really wanted to distill down to it. But great adaptogens are holy basil, ashwagandha, reishi mushroom. And these vitamins are fantastic for helping you with like your stress stimulus response and keeping your cortisol steroids down so that you aren't in a state of fight or flight that may put your body into a state of, um, you know, not adapting well. We'll call it
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
And I think for the first time, we're finding this, to your point, as a new term, is because we can find foods that can serve us, or vitamins and herbs that can serve us in a way that will support our system, and really stress management, which we all appreciate.
Yes, in the
We're
Western world for
constantly,
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I want to transition here into food now because it kind of goes really hand in hand with you're saying adaptogens and the way that it helps us heal. For a lot of us in the Western culture, we look to big pharma or we look to other modalities to help us heal our bodies or to get rid of whatever we're going through. But very rarely do some people understand food has very healing powers, very healing powers. And as somebody, I advocate for a nice plant-based diet. I know like eating a diverse spread of polyphenols, minerals, antioxidants, all the other things that come along with plants. It can heal your body, reduce inflammation, it can heal your gut, and have all these other spillover effects that come along with it. But where's your opinion in terms of how the Western culture views big pharma for healing versus food for healing?
There's so many layers to that question. That's such
Mhm.
a great question. I think, Big Pharma has created a platform where we want a quick fix. And oftentimes a holistic plant-based diet, if you're immersed in, call it Big Pharma, and eating poorly, you don't get the quick fix feeling, right? It doesn't happen overnight. And these to get to a place of like feeding the endocannabinoid system, for example, it takes weeks for that system to get to a place where you can actually feel the difference. And so, like when we formulate, a lot of times we're like, okay, we're dealing with a population that is used to get just having immediate results. And yet we want to give you immediate results, but how do we do that with plants? And so, my best advice there is you just have to start. Once you start the journey, I always say the veil becomes thinner. When someone eats a bunch of sugar and they're used to eating a bunch of sugar, the next day you don't feel any different because you always feel crummy. But
Mm,
if you start this holistic path, this cleaner way of living, the veil becomes thinner. So if you decide that you're going to eat a bunch of sugar one night, the next day you're having a sugar hangover. You are feeling it. You are cloudy. You're dragging. Your performance isn't as good. And I do love, like, once you start that journey, you start to see the relationship with performance. Like, my daughter now can see when she eats poorly, she doesn't perform as well athletically. And like being able to make that connection. And we've lost that in our Western, civilization. I think we're all not all. I think the curiosity is starting to percolate again, which I'm really excited about. Um, and there's more resources becoming available, because I know when we first started, what made me, really concerned about the natural industry was that it was only available for the one percenters.
mhm.
It was the premium products, clean products were only available for those who could afford it. And it was a very small percentage. And so when we started Green Goo, we said, we got to make these products available. We saw a study that came out that said like 98% of all consumers would buy organic if it was affordable and available. You just don't get results like that. So clearly there's a barrier to entry just based on price alone. And I'll say, and going back to the psychedelic and alternative modality and plant-based renaissance, what I appreciate about those cultural shifts is that they're actually talking about equity across healthcare in these modalities, which you don't hear about that in Big Pharma. Like, there is no discussion on how can we make these more available, and yet you do see that in the plant-based renaissance, the alternative modalities, the psychedelic era, because we're really honoring the natural state of where these plants and medicines come from.
Yeah, super powerful. And again, it's just opening the floor right now. I feel like it is becoming more accessible. It's becoming more mainstream. A lot more people are being receptive to it rather than before. But let's stay on this topic of healing then. I want to know for Jodi personally, like what are some foods that you stay away from where they just do not serve you in any way, shape, and form, but they may be very mainstream and common for most people?
Hmm. What would be mainstream? Really, I mean, we eat pretty clean. Although, I do love a good grilled cheese sandwich. Don't get me wrong. But,
Okay.
gluten and dairy. I think not everyone has, gluten and dairy challenges. But I will say that when you start eating clean, like vegetables and fruits and nuts and, kind of the food in their natural state, you'll find that you can't have a whole lot of dairy and gluten unless you find like whole grain breads and things like that. Um, I mean, I love a good pizza too, don't get me wrong. But you're
Definitely.
gonna feel it the next day. Um, but there's ways to, I was at the Natural Health Food Expo a couple of weeks ago, and it's always fascinating to see the innovation that's coming around bringing whole foods to people, but in formats that we go back to Western medicine. Like, you want the natural Cheeto, we can give you the natural Cheeto, but we're going to make it out of cauliflower, and at least, it's a healthier version of. And, I invite people that when they are looking for those treats, explore some of the new innovation that's been coming out when you just want to have a sweet treat or a savory treat, because, the Natural Food Channel has been pretty clever around some of the plant-based alternatives that you can find.
Yeah,
What's your, or you go ahead.
no, what were you gonna say?
What's the food that you don't eat? I'm
Oh, the
curious.
foods that I don't eat. Honestly, it's more or less ingredients. For
Very
the people
good.
listening right now that know me, I'm about to say the canola oils, the seed oils. I
Yep.
don't think I understood back then when I was just in this bulking phase, just eating all this food because I got so tunnel visioned into the gym. I never really realized what effect that had on my body till I went cold turkey for a while and I didn't have any of it. And then I reintroduced it, and my stomach and body felt horrible.
Yeah.
So, like you said, that veil becomes much thinner when you start removing some things and then you pay more awareness or you have more attention to it. So yeah, anything with canola oil, honestly, anything in the processed food, nothing off the shelf. Like very rarely will you find me doing that. I advocate nice whole foods, simple,
So
clean
good.
ingredients because you honestly you do feel better. Do I have a
I
treat every
do.
now and then? Yes. Do I pay for it the next day? I know I will. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
And I always say, like, if you open up our cabinet, everything's in jars. So
Mm.
because we're buying whole foods. So we've got nuts, we've got beans, we've got whole grains, and we're getting them from that format. And so then you're also eliminating the packaging issue I was talking about in terms of phthalates and different chemicals that leach from the packaging that we have. And so, to your point of having clean whole foods, it eliminates so much. And then to your point, you can hear your body. You know what your body needs in terms of giving it more. Like the communication just becomes so much more, that frequency becomes so much stronger.
Yeah, much more in tune. I would agree with you on
Mhm.
that. But let's transition, Jody, into this part of the episode where I want to talk about medicine. And I know Green Goo will be a very key talking point here because I want to touch on where our current system is in the medical system. You live in the States, I live in Canada. They are a little different, but the underlying principle is the same for pharmaceuticals, all these other great industries. But I want to look at, pills, prescriptions, synthetic medications. Where do you feel our current medical system and treatments are broken, for lack of a better term? Besides the chemicals, besides the synthetic, where do you feel like as consumers we're really missing out?
Mm, Another great question, Matt. I mean, I've kind of going back to where we talked about before in the sense of, the solution is a quick fix and it's not the education or the tools on how to take care of these vehicles that we have. And I think that, that conversation is in the forefront. If someone told you that you were going to have one car your entire life, and this is how you had to treat this car, what you put in it, what you do with it, you might think about how you would take care of that car differently. And we don't do that with our own bodies. And that is not a part of the conversation. It's just here's this medication and oh by the way there's these 20, 50, 80 other, you know, um side effects. And, regenerative health is not a part of the conversation. And you go and you visit with your physician. And again, it's what's wrong and not what could we be doing more of to live longer lives. Now, I'd like to think that we're at this intersection that's happening right now in terms of looking at longevity and looking at, what we would normally do. Like, for example, alcohol. Alcohol sales are down. I suspect that, you know, 20 years from now, we're going to be looking at movies being like, remember when everybody used to happy hour all the time and drink alcohol? Like, who does that now? The same way we did with smoking, in the
Mm.
50s, because there's just more data to show that it's not serving you well. It's obviously reducing our longevity, and yet it's become a part of like the social environment. And so, my hope is that we're going to take this term integrative holistic medicine that used to just be alternative, because it was the alternative and it wasn't the mainstream. And we're not even using that term anymore, right? Because it's like, no, it shouldn't be the alternative. It is what we should be doing now. And taking a more holistic approach. And we're seeing it in medical school. When I used to train resident physicians, I was so surprised that they were not looking at the psychology of the patient in front of them, this, sociology,
Mm.
behaviors, different attributes to look at this patient from a holistic perspective because the science was there to support that taking that holistic approach gave you better results. Fast forward, now we're actually seeing that is as a part of, our medical training and so forth. And I really think, and again, I'm going back to psychedelics again, the psychedelic industry is disrupting the medical industry in so many ways because there's been a number of breakthroughs through these different treatments that challenge how we look at pain, how we look at mental health, how we look at phantom limb, how we look at um, different cancers and how we could interface with our patients and get better results.
That's huge. Very, very well articulated. And I like where you said that we're transitioning out of the alternative. We're not saying it's alternative anymore. Like that should be a primary mechanism. I actually want to add on to this in terms of the pharmaceutical industry or healthcare industry, in terms of where it's broken, at least in my opinion. And Colin Campbell, I remember reading in a book one time, said, "We don't have a healthcare system, we have a disease care system." Have you ever heard that
Mhm.
term before? S-
Yes.
So when I heard that, it really got me thinking a little bit. And I said, wow, when you look at the landscape, let's say someone has high cholesterol or someone has diabetes, the healthcare system will say, we're going to put you on these prescription meds, not for a week, not for a couple months, but for life. That's just treating whatever you're dealing with. It doesn't have a solution for the underlying symptom. And that's where you said we need to start looking at what we can start doing more of in the areas of your life, rather than just giving you a pill. So I
Mhm.
think even having awareness around that, understanding that what you're dealing with, whether it's any area of your health, it's not your fate, because you have so much more in your control to get out of that. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my gosh. Like, if there's anything we can do while we're here, Matt, is like give the power back to the people that they know how to heal themselves.
Yes.
Like full on that there is so much more you can do to be in a good state of well-being, mind, body, spirit, that is it's free. It's free. And
Mhm.
then really it comes down to choices and, lifestyle and commitment, do what it
Mhm.
takes.
Now, here's a follow-up for you, because I know you're in this industry because you do have alternative medicines, and your company Green Goo is all about that. So one question I always have is, when people are making the transition from this current mainstream medicine, pills, prescriptions, and they're looking more into the natural solutions, there can be a lot of dangers in that, because a lot of companies maybe aren't regulated. They don't know if the efficacy is correct. Maybe they actually don't have the same standards to understand if the product is free of anything else. Now I know you have B-Corp certification, correct? Which is
Yes.
creme de la, kudos. That's like really, really amazing. So how can consumers know when they're making that switch? What should they look for to know that the product they're getting is a product that is going to be lasting, it's actually beneficial for them, and it won't do them harm?
Information is key. And so read your labels. And we have everything at our fingertips now, whether it's Chat GBT or Google, you reviews, all of these things can serve you as just a general consumer without having to be a scientist or an expert in the field. And, generally speaking, the information that you find, so long as you're using good resources, can give you valid information in terms of ingredients. I mean, there used to be a saying, if you can't pronounce it, don't wear it, don't eat it. But you know what? Plant Latin names, we can't pronounce those, so it
Mm-hmm.
may look like it's, a harmful ingredient. And then you go and you get a chance to Google it and you find out, oh, it's just rosemary. Oh, it's just lavender. Oh, this is good for me. So but take the time, and there's great apps out there. Like I can't remember the name of this one app, but my daughter has it, and she basically can hold it up to any product, and it rates from 1 to 100 on how clean that product is, and then gives you some
Mm.
key attributes to it. And, there's a lot of greenwashing just in the labeling. She bought a drink the other day and I said, "Did you check the ingredients?" "No, mom, it's got aloe, it's green, it's totally gonna be good for me." And then we're in the car, she's like, "Oh my gosh, 35 grams of sugar?" So don't let the branding fool you. There's expert branders out there making sure that they're, tugging at your heartstring to think that something is natural and clean.
Mhm.
Um, but it doesn't take that much time, and then after that, you get to know it, right? Then what you're signing up for.
Yeah, 100%, Jody. And I think one of the other biggest things that consumers, besides the education piece, when they're picking these products is understanding that companies that have a lot of transparency in the way that they manufacture their products, where they're sourcing things, that can make a world of a difference. And I know for Green Goo, you're very transparent in that on the way that you do it for your website, your marketing. And the one thing that's really cool is you actually educate consumers about how the process works from where you start with the raw materials to when you get that finalized product. And I'm curious to understand how this works because it seems like a very cool process. So break that down for consumers as they're listening right now.
And just to add to that, you bring up a really great point in terms of a B Corp. And just in case consumers, you don't know what the B Corp stands for, but it is an incredible resource for ensuring that what you're engaging in, whether it is a service that you're using or a product that you're buying, has gone through rigorous evaluation on its ingredients, its sourcing, its social impact. It's how they're building their company internally and culturally, and it's really business for good. And so you can use that logo as a guiding light to, making consumer decisions. And I really believe every time you purchase something, you're voting. And so, you see something with a B Corp on there, they spent a lot of time and intention to ensuring that they're delivering something to you that's going to be good for this planet. So, kudos to all the B Corps out there. That being said, yes, Green Goose sourcing and transparency. So for us, when we first started this company and we were making the ingredients ourselves, and then we started shopping to find a manufacturer. And the reason these products work was because we were growing the herbs, we were taking them through this infusion process, we were yielding high amounts of the medicinal properties from these plants, putting the custom oils together because plants alone have one benefit, but plants combined with each other are like an orchestra and work very well to enhance and produce another level of results. So, that botanical profile is important. And not having it interfere with other ingredients in there, which can inhibit the efficacy and the cleanliness. And so, here this stuff is taking off and consumers are, we're at the farmer's market and people are just loving the results. I mean, moms are coming into us saying, like, my son who had eczema, he didn't want to go to school. He was miserable. Now he's going to school. He's happy. People with chronic pain. And so we're like, oh my gosh, like, we got to make sure we preserve this process because we know that's why it works. And, a lot of manufacturers didn't want to produce the product because the process they were not familiar with. And they're like, why don't you go get all these pre-made extracts that are on the market and we just mix it together? And I'm like, one, there's sneaky ingredients in there. And then two, it changes the efficacy. And so thankfully, it took a manufacturer whose son had eczema, used our product, and came back to us and said, you know what? I don't know how we're going to scale this product, but the world needs it. And we are going to figure out a way to do this. And to this date, that is our manufacturer where we have these big, beautiful vats of plant-based oils that are, infusing these herbs. So we bring the plants to our manufacturing facility, and then we have these blends that go in that you can't get anywhere else. And it smells so good. And when you
Mhm.
see like when we're filtering it out and it's just this beautiful, rich oil, it's really fantastic. And so, to your point, it's a very clean, traceable, transparent, process. And then also able to give, a very, highly, highly efficacious product as a result.
Very cool. And I gotta say a big shout out to you staying rooted and grounded in how you wanted to bring that product to fruition because you had a quick fix shortcut, probably a lot more cost effective, I would assume too, faster turnaround time for manufacturing, like all these ways in business to just say that's the best way to go about it. But you knew the product had a bigger mission, a bigger why, and you really stayed true to that vision. So a lot of respect to you on that, Jodi.
Thank you.
I also want to say my personal story with some natural products. I haven't personally tried Green Goo. It's definitely on my list after this podcast, though. I was actually in Miami not too long ago with some of my friends, and I got really sick during the trip. So I was popping like Tylenol, popping all these different pills to just make sure that I could get better as fast as possible. Like natural for me, it wasn't even in my headspace at that point because I'm on a trip. I want to go back and have fun really fast, but nothing's helping. Nothing is helping. And there was one night where I couldn't breathe through my nose. Like it was just so bad. And my buddy, who he's from China, and they have a lot more Eastern medicines, right? So they're more natural based. And he pulls out this what he calls Tiger Balm. I've never heard of this.
Mhm.
I'm assuming you heard of it the way you're shaking your head. And he goes, Matt, take a little scoop, put it right under your nose, and breathe in. I go, Bobby, I can't breathe, man. I'm not gonna be able to do it. He goes, just trust me, try it really quick. And I did it right on my nose. And within the next inhale, like it was clear. I couldn't believe it. I go, what is this? Like, what's going on in this bomb that's allowing me to breathe well? So I think just trying out these natural products too to see how much better they can be with no side effects. Like I experienced that firsthand. It was just so cool. It was just so cool.
Truly, and like bringing in Ayurvedic practices to it and, pure essential oils and knowing how, you combine adaptogens and plants and different smells and how they can work on your system and then where you put them on your body. Like that particular product, we have a product called Free to Breathe, and it's very much like a vapor rub with antiviral and sleep properties. And we say put it under your feet before you go to bed because it can, open up your airway, boost your immune system. And so it's really fun to take like those practices that you reference from all over the world, and they're kind of like, time honored traditions, and then bringing them into our Western civilization and saying, hey, here's an easy way to use this without thinking that, to your point, that you need a Tylenol. Like perhaps there's solutions that you can have first, and you might get to a place where that is the only solution, right?
Hmm,
But if you can save your liver and save your body, and utilize some of these other medicines, then when it's time for that other, more advanced technology that may be more difficult for your body can handle it. And, I say this a lot, but physicians love working on healthy patients. Like, healthy patients are the best ones that if you have to have surgery or you have to have, maybe you have a genetic medical condition, what have you, at least then you're showing up in really good form because you were able to, nurture your body and perhaps prevent it from having, overexposure to things that you just are harder on you.
for sure, for sure. Now, Jody, we've got lots of great intel from the medicine to the food to the mind body connection in this conversation today. Now, one of the biggest things that I've learned in my health journey as a personal trainer, nutritionist, health business owner, rarely we are in the business of health. And I always like to say we're in the business of behavior change because all of these things are really fantastic to know, to learn, and to adopt. But until you're able to put them into practice, they're useless, in my opinion. And now I know you have your health psychology degree, which is why I am stoked to ask you some of these questions. But I want to know, where do you feel people's biggest blocks are in terms of making a habit stick, especially when it relates to health and wellness? Because I find a lot of people that's one of their biggest things. They just can't stick with it.
No, so it's funny. I was cleaning out my office and I found my master's thesis, and it was, I worked with the military to help them improve their weight loss program and behavior change. And it was like these 10 behaviors is, what we think would help your military folks stick to this weight loss program. And I think that's the magic, right? Question that we've been trying to crack the code is how do you get behavior change and to stick? And at the end of the day, you just got to do it over and over and over and over and over. And if there are obviously, different ways you can get into mindset that improve neuroplasticity and improve, neural pathways to commit to change. But at the end of the day, you just have to do it over and over and over. And the more you do the right thing, the more it becomes the thing that you do automatically. Now, how do you get to that? You just got to, if that, who I think it was like Hermosi. I love some of his one-liners. Do what it takes and just keep doing it and don't stop, and if you get off track, just get back on track and keep going. Um,
Mhm.
And I mean, neuroplasticity is real. And what I love about what we're learning now is that it used to be, you turn a certain age and you can't learn new tricks. And what we recognize is no, we are able to influence neuroplasticity. Yes, as you age, neuroplasticity becomes, less agile, if you will. There's a whole reason why, your grandparents are like stuck. They're stuck in their
Stubborn.
ways.
Yeah.
Exactly. That is neuroplasticity. I would tell that to my daughter. Just give grandma a break. It's neuroplasticity. But the reality is we're finding more ways that we can improve upon that. And, the argument could be made that the more commit to this healthy lifestyle, the more, not just out of habit, right? The more you do it, the more that neural pathway becomes stronger, but also you're bringing in healthy components. And, we know that your neuroplasticity improves with health and wellness. And it's something that's kind of interesting that's, part of, some of the new stuff that I'm learning just about the epidermis. And I love more of the data that's coming out because now we're seeing different medical journals actually do, studies on how mindfulness can impact inflammation and eczema. So we're getting like real data to show, that relationship is real. When it comes down to it, learning more about the skin and we're seeing more mind body data coming out. We used to think that the skin was just your largest organ and it was just there to protect you from like your bones and, from weather changes. And that's all the skin did. And now we're learning that, for example, telomeres, or telomeres are the end caps of our DNA that give insight to our longevity and the length of those telomeres. You can have an idea. And so, as those telomeres get shorter and shorter, you have more exposure to, disease and so forth. Well, in your epidermis, there's an enzyme in there, like there's more of that enzyme that could be regenerated than anywhere else in your body. So perhaps our longevity is more connected to our skin than we ever knew. And so one of the ingredients that we put in all of our products is calendula. And, originally we started using this product because it had data to show that it was antifungal, anti-yeast, antimicrobial, helped speed up the healing in wound care. And what we're finding is it's actually a plant stem cell and it has the ability to regenerate, to stimulate the enzyme that regenerates our telomeres. Like, whoa,
Wow.
maybe there's more we can be doing with our skin in terms of longevity. And so, it just brings me back, and maybe this is the full circle of the psychoneuroimmunology and skincare and its relationship with our mind and body. And, I was talking to an investor yesterday, and he was like, Jodi, when I just use your green goo, I just feel better. Like, why is that? Like, I just put it on and I feel better. And I'm like, that's your telomeres talking.
Incredible. Yeah, yeah. Wow. So it's crazy to see where the data takes us because you wouldn't even think those two things interconnect. Meanwhile, they have the
Right.
most beneficial impact. It's remarkable to see. And you're doing a lot of great things over at Green Goo, Jodi. So I want to give you the stage here as we wrap up. Number one, thank you for making the space and coming on the TRE, sharing your insights. But where can listeners after the show connect with you, learn more about you, learn more about your businesses? Where can we send them?
Yes, you can just go to greengoo.com. That's really our website where we share a lot more. And of course, we've got all of our social handles. Green Goo helps. And you can learn more about the family, new product development, the holistic skincare approach. We really try to provide more than just a product, but a platform for information. So, hopefully that can serve our customers in a holistic way and really encouraging mindfulness. I think if there's, that if there's any gift that I can give besides these lovely products that you should butter up on and feel better with is, taking that health approach and really becoming present because the more you become present, the more it might be, there's your magic answer to your question, might be the magic to how to develop
Ma-
better habits and stick
Yeah,
to it.
absolutely. No, Jody, incredible, incredible, insightful conversation today. Thank you so much again. And thank you for tuning in, listeners. I can't wait to launch this episode and share this with our audience. So thank you again, Jody.
Thank you. Have a beautiful one. And it was great to spend time with you.